Welcome. We're going to solve a trig equation. We're going to find all solutions for phi as long as phi is inside one rotation of the unit circle, so between 0 degrees and 360 degrees. So we want to solve for phi. The equation we have is 1/2 cosine phi plus 1 equals this decimal value 1.2108. Now, most of the examples, or many of the examples I've done before this, we were dealing with numbers that we could easily find using the unit circle, which is certainly something we need to know how to do. But in the real world, not all trig equations are going to be those nice, easy to deal with numbers. So we also need to be familiar with using our calculator and how we can use our calculator to solve. So I want to isolate phi. That's pretty easy for me to start moving things around. I'm going to subtract the 1 and multiply by 2. So I have 1/2 cosine phi equals 0.2108 times 2. I have cosine phi is 0.4216. So again, we're trying to isolate this phi. And I need to get cosine away. Remember, cosine is an operation. So when I move it to the other side, we use an inverse operation. And I end up with phi is cosine inverse of 0.4216. And this, of course, I would type into my calculator. I would always, when I use my calculator, we're always checking to make sure whether or not we are in radian or degree mode. So take a second because you guys are going to pull your calculator out and make sure you can do that. Push the mode button and make sure you are in the correct mode. All right, so we want to be in degree mode for this because we're giving specifications to give our answer in degrees. All right, so when we type that into our calculator, we're going to use the second button and choose the cosine option because you notice above it, it says cosine inverse. And depending on your calculator, it could say arc cos. So we're going to type cosine inverse. That's going to put on our calculator if we're dealing with a TI 84 or 83, cosine inverse. It'll open a parenthesis. You just need to type 0. You actually don't even need to type the 0. You just need to type decimal 4216 and hit enter. So your calculator is going to give you one number. Your calculator doesn't give you multiple answers. Your calculator is going to tell you that phi is equal to 65.06435654. And those decimals keep going. All right. But the calculator gives you one value. In this situation, we're going to round it and we'll just say phi is approximately 65.06 degrees. Now, is that the only solution? So at this point, we need to think back to what we know about inverse trig functions and the answers that the calculator gives us. Remember, if we're dealing with inverse cosine, we are always going to get an answer between 0 and pi. So we've got this positive 65.06 degrees up here in quadrant 1. Now, cosine of phi was equal to a positive number. So we have to think, where else is cosine phi positive? So going back up here, cosine was equal to a positive value. In which quadrant is cosine phi going to be positive? All students take calculus. We know cosine is also positive in quadrant 4. So how can we write this 65-degree angle down here in quadrant 4? Because we need to include that as our solution. And so if I type into my calculator 360 minus, and I can use that second answer button, right? So 360 minus the answer, that's going to give me an angle measure, 294.9356435, which is in quadrant 4. So my final answer for this problem, I would say phi is 65.06 degrees and 294.94 degrees. I have two solutions. All right, so when you have to use that inverse trig button on your calculator, you are going to remember the calculator only gives you one answer. And you have to think about where else is that function positive or negative. In this case, because I had cosine equal to a positive number, I knew to look in quadrant 4 for my other solution. All right, you're on your own. Have fun out there. Kick butt doing math. Email me if you have any questions.